Would you agree, though, that at this moment, the debate, it's not about Donald Trump. It's about traditional Democratic candidates versus people who identify as Democratic Socialist. They are a lot further to the left than most people are used to.
Absolutely, Democrats are having a debate. We're going to have a debate going into 2028, as we should as a party. It's an open field, and this is democracy in action.
Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss defending the surge of far-left candidates. Several potential 2028 contenders are hitting the campaign trail to try to rally support for progressive midterm candidates. But other moderate Democrats fear the party is veering too far left. Let's bring in Republican strategist Mehek Cooke. Mehek, last hour we spoke with Julian Epstein. He's a longtime Democratic strategist. He was an advisor to the House Judiciary Committee. He is not going to be pulling for Abdul El-Sayed. In fact, he says he's going to work to elect a Republican, Mike Rogers, to the Senate in Michigan. Do you think that's the first of some of these of other potential defections?
John, that was a great interview. I actually watched it. I know Julian and many Democrats that are my friends, they are actually pushing back against socialism because they don't want our country to start looking like Cuba and Venezuela. But they're also telling me, and Democrats are right, Julian made excellent points. The problem with Republicans today is when you just continue to say socialism is bad and go to textbook definitions, that's not going to win over the voters that are gaining momentum in this communist party. Calling them crazy isn't helping. Abdul El-Sayed and the words that he is using and his even campaigning with Hassan Piker, who is an anti-Semite, none of that matters. All voters care about today is affordability, the green in their wallets, and that's where the GOP needs to focus. So yes, Democrats are looking for a path, and Republicans can deliver by talking about affordability. And yes, we delivered the big, beautiful bill, John, but there's a lot more work to be done. The 25-year-old that's talking about Burrito Gate, we can debate burritos, but we still have a housing crisis, a food crisis, a gas crisis in terms of how are we going to pay for it? So it's the kitchen table issues that socialism are winning on because they continue to say government for all.
Yeah, Scott Walker, the former Republican governor of Wisconsin, shares some of those same thoughts. Listen.
There's a real reaction to some of the economic plight that many young people feel like they're in, particularly when it comes to first-time home buyers. Of course, I would argue the answer is not to go the route of Venezuela, which elected a democratic socialist and ruined the country, but rather to get government out of the way. But I think those are the things that have elevated someone who's embraced these once really radical ideas, even for Democrats a few years ago, would have been radical.
Because, you know, as Julian pointed out, the inflation that ramped up under the Biden administration is really the cause of a lot of the current economic pain, although certainly the Trump administration can bear some of the blame.
Well, there was no light switch to immediately turn off the inflation that Joe Biden created. Remember, American families were paying $11,000 a year during his administration. That's $44,000 that we're still trying to crawl out of. President Trump did deliver lower gas prices. With the Iran war, we're constantly seeing foreign policy hitting us in our pocketbooks and our checkbooks. But the one thing the Trump administration has done is continue to focus on housing, not only make it more affordable by pushing out illegal aliens and making sure that we have immigration reform, but we're also stopping corporations from buying housing in bulk so that entry-level homeowners can get there. But I still think there's more to be done, John. It can't be shoved to the side. We have to deliver affordability as Republicans because we're in the driver's seat today. And part of that is a real discussion about what more we can be doing to lower taxes and talking to young folks about what they expect out of the economy instead of just laughing off socialism. That is not going to work. That's a 1990 playbook that young people aren't going for today.
The Democratic Socialist candidate for governor of Wisconsin, Francesca Hong, seems to be backing away from some of her long-held beliefs. Listen to this.
Sometimes I think that I had some hot takes, some bad takes on Twitter, but when you're a business owner running a restaurant during COVID or trying to pay bills as a student, out there into the world, but I've evolved, I've learned.
So she advocated defunding the police, for instance, says she no longer wants to do that. You think that's her real belief, or is she just backing away from some of these more liberal policies?
Well, I think Francisca Wong has a Graham Plattner moment here. She continues to run her mouth. This didn't happen 10 or 15 years ago when she was a young woman. She made statements about closing down prisons, Medicare for all, defunding the police 3 years ago, canceling Thanksgiving. When you have crazy ideas and then they come to surface, the reason she's backing down now, John, is because polling is telling her that the majority of voters, common sense voters, don't want extremism in the governorship in Wisconsin. But it's too little too late. Once again, Democrats are backing away from her because they don't want to embrace her far left ideology. And voters will have to decide, do they believe a woman who is saying now that she doesn't want to abolish prisons, or are they going to take her word for it? And I have to be very clear here. She never said she didn't want to abolish prisons. She just said it was something that was aspirational, which means she still wants that, John. And that's detrimental to safety and security for American families.
I think the good people of Wisconsin want Thanksgiving. They like it. We'll
Right.
see. We'll see how this vote goes. Mehek Cooke. Mehek, thank you.
Thank you so much, John.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.